This is one of my first times using the photo booth feature, uh, and it's filming things. So the photo booth can take videos now, which I think is kind of cool. Um, I once heard that the uh, best measure of first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in your mind and be able to live with it and be able to function, which really makes me think about how intelligence is tied with open-mindedness and willingness to uh, learn and be enlightened with new ideas. And I have many friends who are uh, they're smart in the sense that, maybe they know a lot of things. They remember a lot. Smart people tend to remember a lot more. Um, or at least people who I perceive to be smart. Um, they're able to, as a result, extrapolate from the things that they learn on a day-to-day basis and make certain conclusions about them. And furthermore, help it actually direct the way that they live and the way that they choose to live. I also know that these people can be very close-minded sometimes, which is really interesting. And I think that happens because when you are trying to figure out your way through the world, the best way that you can do it is by trying to develop some sort of model for yourself, some way of living, some sort of paradigm that helps you get through whatever you're dealing with at any given point. And when you are able to establish this model, you're able to use it and then use it again and then use it again and pretty much rinse and repeat because you've found a formula that works for you. The problem with making mental models like this is that your life is always changing. You're in like a very, very dynamic environment. And that's relevant because when you find a model that you really, really like, you find that you have often people have a hard time wanting to or having a situation that would disprove that model or show in some way that it actually doesn't work as well as they thought that it did. And so I have there a lot of quite smart people in my life and people that I know that actually can be very, very close-minded because they say, well, I figured it out, and I don't want to hear really, whatever this is because I'm good. I whatever you're proposing to me is not as good as what I've already figured out. And then so you ask yourself, well, then are they really intelligent? Are they really smart people if they're not willing to, uh, see the other side? And I have, to contrast that, I have some people, I have many friends in my life who I wouldn't say are very traditionally smart. They're not necessarily applying maybe what they've learned in education on a day-to-day basis. Maybe they don't have a very expansive vernacular. Maybe they don't think so much. And people say, oh, you have to think to be able uh, to be smart because you have to produce you make conclusions about your environment and it requires thinking. Those people also tend to be some of the most open-minded people that I know. And that's really weird because you're like, well, I thought if they thought being smart was being open-minded. But these people who maybe are not traditionally smart, maybe they're not smart, maybe they're experienced, maybe they're wise, through just very rigorous application of their own paradigms. But I find that I have very, very polarized um, sort of friend groups that are smart and closed-minded versus the people who are not smart. Again, it's like what does it mean to be intelligent? That's a different discussion. But the people who are not traditionally book smart, who are really open-minded, who I can bounce ideas off the best, and who are, I can actually have a discussion with them, and and it sometimes feels more fulfilling because I don't feel like I'm holding myself um to any expectation that may be any precedent that may be set down, that hey, we're having a deep conversation, therefore we have to talk like intellectuals, we have to uh display ourselves as if we know what we're talking about. And that's a big thing, right? Is like you start to see yourself as smart, you start to feel like you need to have things figured out. um the most open-minded of people have very few expectations of themselves, and therefore are able to come up with like very radical ideas, and I think are more likely to be successful. However, those people need to now go and look at the people who are knowledgeable and have a very expansive memory unit, and all this plethora of knowledge that they're constantly providing to the people around them. And you have to go, okay, well, I have this really good idea. How do I apply it? This has gone a little bit off topic, but I guess I've kind of been thinking about how being open-minded relates to being intelligent, and it has to do with learning. Everything has to do with learning. Um, I I find that I'm happy when I learn things. Um, a really big part of my day-to-day routine is I look back and I go, well, how have I grown today? How have I uh, how have I become a better person? Or how have I, maybe not better person, but how is the person that I've become today versus the person I was yesterday, and how does that contribute to what I deem to be a successful person and what I want to be? And part of that is learning. A huge part of that is what is um I'm only going to become better if I am learning things every day. And the only way to learn things every day is by actually is taking things in and then processing them, and then deciding, oh, how do I want to use this? Because there's so much input, like on a day-to-day basis, there's so much that you could learn from. You could have the most mundane sort of day. You could like, oh, I went to a coffee shop, bought coffee, I sat and studied. Maybe I hung out with a friend. Maybe I walked my dog. Um, then went watched a movie, went to bed. Some person would go, well, that's not very productive. You didn't you didn't get a lot done. It doesn't sound like the most successful day that you've ever had. But every single interaction that you have throughout your day, not even interaction, and every little like microscopic uh, movement that you make has a potential to teach a lesson to you. You have a potential to learn from it. And so I think that in some way, being intelligent means being able to extrapolate from those microscopic interactions and events and movements, and to say, how am I going to learn from this?